Wednesday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on a 104.5 The Zone. With Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling as we go to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, talking college football with our friend David Ubben of The Athletic. Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. And David, I'll tell you what, sad news, of course, yesterday with Mike Leach's passing, but so many great Mike Leach stories have been told over the last 24 hours. Do you have one favorite memory of covering Mike Leach?
Not one that really stands out.
Okay.
I never made the Key West trip,
Sure.
or anything like that. I think ultimately, whenever you'd call him for a story, if I was doing something where I just wanted Coach's thoughts, he was always near the top of the list because you never really knew what direction he was going to take something in and what his perspective would be. So I didn't know him super well. I'd obviously done some stuff with covering him over the years. But I think that's my sort of takeaway, is that his mind works so differently than every other coach, that if I was working on a football story and wanted Coach's opinions, he almost never had an opinion that I was expecting, and I think I appreciated that because he just his mind worked so much differently than every other coach, and that's rare, and it was pretty awesome. So there's a huge hole in college football that we're really going to miss.
Well, and David, too, it's interesting, the people talking about Josh Heupel kind of being a part of his coaching tree, so to speak. And although he never coached for Mike Leach, obviously playing for him, and the similarities, you've talked on this show about this with us, about the similarities between that Oklahoma team that Josh Heupel came into and this Tennessee team this past year. Just how impactful was Mike Leach on offenses that we know today, and the different tangents of kind of that coaching tree that we see as the spread and the air raid have evolved over time?
I mean, it's hard to really overstate just how much he changed. Not even in college football. I think you look at the influence of the culture of 7-on-7 in Texas high school football. I think you can point to Mike Leach for a lot of that. I think you can look at all the concepts that have flooded into the NFL. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury was, I think, his second quarterback at Tech. He's an NFL head coach now. And when you look at, all those concepts and what Patrick Mahomes has done, all those things, it's just so ever-present that, I think there's certainly a case for Mike Leach as the most influential coach in college football history, because the sport looks so markedly different, and you can point to him as the biggest influence. Why? He just did so many things. We did a podcast yesterday with myself and Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, just kind of talking about everything Leach. But for so many years, so many coaches and so many administrators that didn't want to hire him, and obviously fans, it's a gimmick. This won't work, that won't work, and he kept on doing it because he believed it would. And then, sure enough, slowly but surely, people would steal things from his offense. I mean, college football and really football in general is a copycat game. People take some things from his offense and different things from his route trees between the combo routes and or option routes, and all kinds of stuff. And just his influence and his fingerprints are everywhere. And you look at, the Big 12 in the 2000s. He came in, nobody was knowing what he was doing, and then by the time he left in 2009, 3/4 of the league is running, some version of the air raid, and it's pretty amazing.
Well, I like what you said there, most influential, possibly you could argue, since we've been around, and straight up, I can say that for what he did for Washington State program, our program. I'm a Wazoo alum. And they were down in the dumps, right? And they hired this guy knowing that they're taking maybe a little bit of a risk. I mean, he was an absolute perfect fit in Pullman. Absolute perfect fit, right? And, you can't do that a lot where you're then going to bring national attention to a program, and he did that.
Yeah, I think, part of it is Mike Leach is an outsider, and I think, people always, ask, kind of like people ask about Bill Snyder, well, what would he have done at an elite program? I don't know. I think he always seemed more at home as an outsider, and I don't think he ever really had that much of a desire. I think certainly he came close to getting the Tennessee job in 2017, but he always seemed a little bit more at home on the fringes. That's how his brain worked, and you look at Lubbock, Pullman, and Starkville.
Yeah.
I mean, those are three places that it's really hard to win, and he's sitting here 51 games over 500 for his career. I mean, the list of coaches who could do that at those three places for as long as he did it is really, really short, and it might just be Mike Leach. And I think part of it is, his offense and his scheme and his approach to the sport was really about, hey, we're going to make up talent gap because we're going to run 10 plays out of 20 formations, and we're going to rep it 10,000 times, and we're going to get better and better and better at it, and it doesn't matter what your defense throws at it. If we get really good at it, because with the air raid, when it's really running and a defense is sort of struggling to get their hands around it, man, it is hilarious to watch, and so effective, and it drives people insane. And I'm sad we're not going to get to see the Leach version of the air raid. We've seen all his proteges from Dana Holgerson and obviously Sonny Dykes and Lincoln Riley and all these great coaches that he produced have put their own little spin on it. But Leach has always kind of done his own thing, and it always still looks only like Leach did, with a pure air raid and his hatred of running the ball. And it's hilarious, and I'm going to miss that so much.
As far as Leach goes and just how his press conferences and interviews and personality, does college football and coaches need more of that? Because we get the same coach speak in a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of the time when you see a guy like Leach, there's hey, this is weird. But, no, there are other things outside of coaching and sports that these coaches are interested in. Is there a need for more of that?
I think so. I mean, I think ultimately – Nick Saban has done a lot of really good things, but I think one of the worst things he's done for the sport is I think a lot of coaches feel like, well, that's how Nick Saban is, so that's the way I have to be. Very serious, rarely stray from anything. We're gonna be relieved when we win. We're not gonna enjoy winning or show that we're having fun, and we're gonna focus on the process. And I think a lot of coaches, they're different people when they're assistants. Then they get a head job where now they're all of a sudden the face of the program. I'm like, well, I need to be kind of closer to what Nick Saban is, and they change. I've seen it. I'm not gonna throw your names out there, but I've seen it. I've seen coaches that you get to know them a little bit when they're assistants, and then they become head coaches. They answer the phone a little bit less. They change a little bit.
Yeah.
And they lose themselves as they try to establish a program. And Mike never did that. Mike, again, he always answered his cell phone. I know, I can tell you that, no matter what he was doing. And you get stuck in conversations with him from time to time. But I think ultimately he was unapologetically himself. And I think, as I've thought about his legacy and I've thought about, the things that he stood for and did, I think that's one of the things that stood out to me. And I think the lesson that we can take is, always don't be afraid to be yourself when no one else is like that, in whatever respect that looks like. And I think Mike Leach was unapologetically himself, endlessly curious, and I think we can all take that away and really appreciate that. That's the kind of person that I think everybody should try to be.
I mean, and David, and by saying that, if you want to throw Jeremy Pruitt under the bus, I mean, we're okay always doing that on this show, talking about assistants changing his head coaches.
Well, I didn't know Jeremy as an assistant, but I do know that Jeremy certainly, there was a sense that he needed to be like Nick Saban, and I think he never really liked to talk, because one of the things that I wanted to always talk to him about was, where does your program, or where does Nick Saban's program end and yours begin?
Right.
Where's the Jeremy Pruitt sort of stamp? What do you want to do to make it your own? He never really liked to talk about that. I think in retrospect, because it never seemed like he really had his own stamp. It was kind of like, we're going to do everything that Alabama does, down to how we warm up and how we do everything, how we practice, how we travel, all those things. And Jeremy is who he is. He's a really smart X's and O's coach, but I think maybe the Mike Leach aspect of, hey, let's figure out who I am, and I'm going to make a program that reflects that. I think more coaches would be happier doing that. And I think we talk about this too. Mike Leach, people don't talk about it as much, but he is in some ways a trailblazer in not having the sort of 3 a.m. the 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. workaholism that you saw. He just didn't do that, and I think.
Yep.
I remember talking to Mike Gundy. This was probably 2000. It was like 2010, right before 2010, right when their program really picked up. And for a long time, Mike Gundy did that. He was we're going to get here, 6:30 in the morning. We're going to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, go home and take a cat nap during the season, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to burn the candle at both ends. And maybe not quite that dramatic, but they did a lot of hours. They practiced for a long time. And then at like 2010, something like that, he trimmed all the way back. He said, hey, I'm going to chase my coaches out of the facility, go to your kids' soccer games, go do all those things. They practiced for a lot less. They got out of the facility. They were, coaches, you got to get out of here at, 7 o'clock, and later in the week, maybe 5 o'clock. And what happened? Their program got a lot better. They won the Big 12 in 2011 and were really good. I can't remember if they won it again in 12. No, Kansas State won it in 12. But, their program really improved, and they went to 11-1. And that was right when Dana Holgorsen joined his program. And I have to assume, I've never really asked Mike this, but I have to assume that when you make that dramatic of a shift, I have to wonder if Dana Holgorsen and Mike Leach's influence had something to do with, hey, this isn't how we have to do things. We can work smarter and not work harder, and everybody can be a whole lot fresher. And Mike's done that since then, and he's taken a CEO approach and hadn't tried to run everything himself. And I think, a lot of coaches, we talk about, well, we got to sacrifice, we got to do all this. And I think that's not all necessarily the case. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and nobody skinned cats, perhaps literally, I'm not sure, quite like Mike Leach did.
Well, in that case, too, man, there's a 1,000 ways to build a team, too. And if I throw this number out to you, I think you know where I'm headed. As of yesterday, 19 hours ago, 4,419 is the number of players in the transfer portal. Is there a home for every single one of those kids?
No. I think that's I'm intrigued to see what the transfer portal looks like in like 4 years, because I have to call it a theory now, but I feel pretty confident that we're going to see it become the reality for a couple of reasons. So one, I think more and more kids are going to recognize, hey, there's a lot of people who go into the portal, give up their scholarship, and end up in a worse spot academically, culturally, obviously on the football field. I think that could be part of it. Two, what you're seeing with a lot of kids in the transfer portal right now, they didn't get a chance to really learn their value in recruiting, where it comes to collectives and NIL and trying to figure out, okay, can I make more money somewhere else? Can the school that I'm at, pony up to keep me? There's a lot of those guys in the portal.
Yeah.
And I think in recruiting now, when you're going to get 4 years from now, when a full recruiting cycle has had a chance to, hey, this is my value. I had a chance to talk to schools. I got my 6-figure deal offer, all that stuff. If you're making, 6 figures as a 4-star, or, doing, 40 or 50 as a 3-star or whatever, and you're sitting there in year 3 and you haven't played and you're still making that money, boy, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that will slow down some of the movement as you have more kids who have had a chance to do that. Because right now it's still the minority on the roster. You're still talking about probably 20% of the roster really had a chance to go through recruiting,
right,
and talk to collectives and talk to schools and say, hey, what can I get to come here? What's my value? And I think as you have a full recruiting cycle, I think it will slow down to that movement. Feel free to have me back on in 3 years.
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
right.
It'll only continue to exponentially get worse. But I think when you look at the arithmetic for why guys are going in right now and what is happening, I think the motivation to do that will go away as they see a lot of cautionary tales, and as they see, hey, I had my chance to earn my money, or I'm making my money now, and there's no way I'm going to make if I've been here for 3 years and I haven't contributed, I'm still cashing checks. I'm not on the field, but I'm making money. I'm not going to leave and give up my $80,000 deal or whatever to go try to go down a level and maybe play. They're not going to do that. They're going to stay here. They're going to cash their checks and keep giving teams depth. And so I think that's what we're going to see. I could be wrong, but I think when you look at human nature and how these decisions are made, it's going to make less and less sense. Whereas right now, it makes a lot of sense for all these kids to be in the portal. I totally understand it, and I hope they get the outcome that they desire. But the reality is a lot of kids are not going to.
It's incredible, David, too, about an hour up the road, talking about some of these quarterback prospects. Austin Reed at Western Kentucky enters the portal and then comes out of the portal, and as he does so, announces an NIL deal with a car dealership in Bowling Green and is driving a red Corvette on the field in their stadium saying, Hilltopper Nation, I'm back. Thanks to my friends at, and names a car dealership. This is a real thing that happened. It's almost like quarterbacks going in the portal specifically is like when a head coach's agent floats their name for other jobs and then gets more benefits to just come back to where they started.
Hey, no recruiting inducements, right?
That's right. It's unbelievable.
Listen, it's called capitalism, and I'm very, very excited that players are now able to participate because for a long time there's all these artificial quote unquote we're gonna call them guardrails as though they're not completely un-American and completely unfair. I'm glad those are gone and guys can learn their value. Austin Reed's a really good story. Moving up a level and having the kind of season he did last year. I'm excited to see him because that's the one thing. Like you talk to coaches around the G5, and I was having conversations with them 2 and 3 years ago, and they're like, "We're a farm system now. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Like if you have a kid that has a good year, you're going to lose him." And the coaches are actually kind of resigned to that because you can get mad about it and you can complain, but you can't do anything about it. So what you got to do is, well, let's look down the food chain. If we're sitting there in the G5 and we're going to lose kids, well, guess what? We're going to scout the FCS and we're going to pull kids out of the FCS because that's what we got to do. Because that's and look at P5 rosters and get some P5 bounce backs and guys that want to leave. That's what you have to do, and that's what they're doing. So I feel bad for the G5 coaches and programs and fan bases that you think about all these these G5 legends. You look at Jordan Lynch and from Northern Illinois back in the day. You look at Jarrett Patterson from Buffalo not long ago. Corey Davis from Western Michigan back in the day. All these guys that built these careers and there were these legends at these smaller schools. I don't think you're going to see that. That's going to be really, really rare in the future because kids want that shot, and when you produce, you're going to get that shot. There's going to be teams beating down your door to say, "Hey, we stink at this position. Please come play for us," and they're going to go. So I'm hopeful that we can sort of embrace a new reality and figure something out to calm some of this down. I mean, I wrote a column last year, and I think it still stands that I think it's fair to debate whether or not all this movement is good for college football. I would say it's probably not good for the sport as a whole. Now, I say that, and I don't think the players have any responsibility to do what's good for college football as a whole. They have to do what's good for themselves. But if you want to stop it, you have to make kids employees, and you have to put them on real contracts because that's the only way you can stop the movement. And if you get through a recruiting cycle, like I said, and I'm wrong, and this movement is still going crazy, 3 or 4 years from now, I mean, this is the first time in the history of college football that the coaches who are being driven crazy with this roster management stuff, they're the most powerful people on their campus. They've never been motivated to try and make kids employees and make them paid, and they've never had a reason to do that. But if they can do that, it's going to make roster management a lot easier. And all of a sudden, if you have a bunch of people who are the most powerful people on your campus saying, "Hey, we need to do this," well, you're a lot closer to that getting done. So we'll see how that shakes out. But if you don't want the movement, that's the only option because if you're not paying kids, you've got no right to tell them, where or what they can do. And obviously they've pulled out all those rules and, they called it the 1 year, whatever they called it. It's a non-compete clause for a job that you don't get paid to do, which is insane. And so they pulled that out. So, and the free transfer rule and all that stuff. And, that's the right thing to do. but now you've sort of created this insane situation because you built a sport that in a lot of ways didn't make sense in terms of what life looked like for players, and now you got to fix it, and we'll see what that looks like in the years to come.
David Ubben has been our guest from The Athletic. David, always appreciate you giving us a couple minutes. We appreciate maybe even more the photo evidence of your cornrows and looking like Lil Bow Wow back in the day, which is on our Twitter, @RamonKayla So thank you, David, as always.
I appreciate it. I got a kick out of watching old basketball game tapes with the cornrows. I told Ramon I blame my hairline now for 2022 for what I put my hair through in 2002. So, that's such as life, I guess, cause and effect.
Love it. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys.
All right, there's David Ubben with us this morning on Ramon K.